Hey Art of STEAM attendees, so glad you're here. I'm Jessica, Senior Brand Marketing Manager with Pitsco Education. Our crew at Pitsco is thrilled to join in on the fun. If you're here to explore brain-building play with STREAM learning, you're in the right place. We'll launch in with a quick recap on the state of play in STEM. We'll then jump to our experts' intros in an easy, all-age activity. We'll walk through 3 ways to help amp up STEM STREAM learning. Then, we'll cover why this type of learning is so important in preparing today's students to drive tomorrow. We'll wrap with some free stuff as well as a few details on a way to help STEM learning take flight. Let's go!
Hey there, I'm Molly, the Social Media Marketing Specialist with Pitsco, and I'd like to set the stage for the session. Albert Einstein is credited for saying that play is the highest form of research, and well, we know he was onto something there. Play takes advantage of the natural way kids take interest, explore, investigate, and build understanding about how the world and things work. Play and movement power the brain. When there's tactile and tangible connection in activities, memory, and recall are reinforced. When play is coupled with STEM, problem solving, creativity, SEL, and language learning can organically happen. Play experiences help kids learn to take risks and make mistakes in lower stakes way, which helps them develop perseverance and grit. So, with that foundation, I'd like you to meet 2 of my colleagues who are passionate about STEAM learning in the early and elementary years.
So we are with Pitsco Education. I'll give you a little bit of a background of who that is in a second. My name is Jake Rudisell. I'm the Early Learning Channel Manager for Pitsco Education. I help support a lot of things when it comes to early childhood education and elementary education for our organization. And for me, early childhood development has been the last decade of my wife and I's life with 4 amazing children. We've gotten to see the development of girls. My daughter, who is now 12, she was an only child till about the age of 5 or 6. And so we got to see the development of females. And then she got surprised with twin brothers who are now 7. So we got to see the development of multiples. And then their younger brother, who is now in kindergarten, came. So we've got those 4, and early childhood development and child development has been our life for literally the last decade plus. And that's how I connect with the community around me, like you all, is through the experiences that I get to see with my children in their school and their daily lives. So with that, I'll kick it over to Aubrey.
Awesome. Good morning. My name is Aubrey Vance. I am a former elementary school teacher. I taught everything from kindergarten to 6th grade at some point in my 11 years. I'm actually out here in Salt Lake City, Utah. So at Pitsco, I get to do things like this. I get to also deliver professional development for teachers and work with schools to help them figure out what solutions are their best fit. And sometimes I even get to write the curriculum. So I have a few different hats, but I'm excited to meet with you guys today and talk about early childhood education and what it looks like with STEM.
If you haven't heard of Pitsco Education before, our mission is something that I'm assuming is very similar to what your all's is on this call, and that is leading education that positively affects learners. And so when we say leading education, you kind of picked up through our introductions that we are a STEM education company. We'll talk a little bit more about our longevity of how long we've been around, but we've been around before STEM was ever an acronym. And so our main mission is to provide hardware, curriculum, professional development that positively affects learners. If it doesn't provide a positive impact on a learner's learning journey, we don't even consider it as something that we're going to be able to provide. So we have to be able to do that. And so real quick, our goal, hopefully again, similar to your all's, our goal is to make it easy for educators and administrators like you to bring quality materials and curriculum to a learning environment that fosters a love for lifelong learning and ultimately prepares learners of all ages to be engaged citizens when they grow into be adults, right? And part of that has a little bit to do with successful professionals. So we want to provide them with the opportunities and skills to be able to not only know what opportunities are out there when they become an adult, but also to develop the skills that will allow them to be successful when they arrive in the world that they're going to grow into. And so what does that look like? Just to put into perspective, what we do, I mentioned we've been around for more than 50 years. So Pitsco was founded in 1971, so we're going on 52 years. And over that time, like I said, we were STEM before it was ever an acronym. One of the biggest things that you'll learn about Pitsco that works very well in early childhood education is we are what we would call hopelessly hands-on. And so we exist and believe that kinesthetic learning opportunities is the key to not only engaging all learners of ages and ability levels. We believe that it provides that equity and access that all learners can engage with, but we also believe it's the key to unlocking the potential of all learners, right? So not only do we believe that it's a way to engage all learners, we believe that it is a key way to develop key 21st century skills that are very relevant and transferable outside of just STEM subject areas. They're skills that if they develop those at a young age, they can transfer that to just about any type of problem solving or problem identification across all subject areas. So what does it look like over the last 50 years? We serve, we hope and we impact roughly 3 million students per year annually in over 60 different countries around the world. We really strive to develop partnerships and be a consultant to help solve the needs of educators.
Awesome. So I wanted to show you guys a simple activity that you can do with kids of all ages. Kids love to see what floats and what sinks. And so we're going to build on that and do one of the classic hands-on activities for STEM. And this is, I call it float your boat. So we're basically going to try to see how we can build a boat that will float, but there's a little twist. We want to give a challenge. So we're going to do this activity, and then I'm going to show you how you can build it into a STEM lesson. So first of all, you're going to build a boat. Students are going to build a boat from a piece of aluminum foil. I generally say it's like a 12-inch by 12-inch piece of aluminum foil. You can change the size. It doesn't really matter how big or how small. You're going to then place the boat into the water, and then you're going to load it up with people or objects to simulate people joining into the boat, and you're going to see how many people you can fit in your boat, or if you can get all of your friends on board. So the situation I give to my students when I taught was, you and your friends are on this great vacation and you are loving being on the water, you're playing, you're snorkeling, you're doing the little, boogie boarding, you're having a great time. But then all of a sudden your boat springs a leak. You look around your boat that you're on and you find some materials that you can build a boat that will be a life raft for you guys. And you build it, and then you see how many of your friends you can save. So your goal is to save all of your friends. So in my situation here, so Jake, if you want to flip over to just me and pin it. So in my situation here, do we have it? My pin perfectly.
You should be pinned.
Okay. All right. So let me angle my camera down to show you the setup I have. So I have just a container of water. This can be just about any size container of water. You do want to try to have a clear one so that kids can see when the boat sinks or floats. And then I have a piece of aluminum foil that I have made into a couple of different boats, just to kind of give you an example. We're going to test this one out first. And then my objects that I'm going to put on the boat can really be a variety of things. I have these really heavy washers just because that's what I have around my house. And it will also make for a quick demonstration because you'll be able to load it up really quickly. Other things that might work could be coins. It could be like the math manipulatives that are the little bears. It could be animal figurines, army men. Really comes down to what do you have around and what would make a good story. I love to use actually golf balls because they're big, they're easy to load up, and it's very visual. So, but Today, I've got washers around. So I'm going to put them in my boat. You can load it or the kids can load it. And I have saved one person already. I have saved 2 people already. And let's see, I have 3 people. Oh, and my boat has sunk. It is only going to save 2 people. When that 3rd person comes on the boat, then all goes down. Okay, and this is a little teacher tip for you. This boat is going to be more successful. I would not tell my students this, but this boat's going to be more successful because it's going to have a bigger surface area and the weight can be distributed. So I put my boat in there. It's more of a raft, but that's okay. And then I'm going to put my weights on. So I have 2 people. I have 3 people already. We are saving more people than the previous boat. I have 4 people, 5 people, and then this last one is 6. And then we took on just a little bit of water, but we are floating along, and we have now saved all of my friends. So this is a really quick, fast activity that you can do. And Jake, you can share the screen again.
All right.
This is a quick, fast activity that you can do that gets some really great results for STEM. So because the kids are engaged, the kids are able to have that open-ended task as they do the challenge. Yeah, so that's the activity. Now let's talk about 3 tools that you can do to build out that lesson and make it more of a STEM lesson, because that's a hands-on activity, but we're not quite STEM yet. So the very first thing would be make the connection. So there's lots of different acronyms for STEM. We have STEM, we have STREAM, where you incorporate in the reading and the arts. We have STEAM, which is where you just incorporate in the arts. I've also seen STEM with 2 M's, where you have medical attached onto it. So there's lots of different acronyms, but for today, we're going to talk about STREAM because reading is so important in the early childhood space. So if I am doing an activity like that, I want to be able to make connections back to things that the students have already learned about, or that they're going to learn about, or real world application. And there's a couple of reasons for this. First of all, it's helping students understand that what happens in the real world is also going to be connected to what I have in school. So my topics that I'm learning in school, there's a purpose for me to learn them. And also helping them take some very abstract concepts and seeing real world applications, making them a little bit more concrete. So for example, with this activity of float your boat, we have science concepts. We have buoyancy, we have float and sink. So if you're talking about, hey, this object is very buoyant, and describing what buoyancy is, but then you show it, now they're starting to make that connections, and now they're starting to recognize, how can I make my boat more buoyant? And they're able to incorporate in that vocabulary. Technology to most of us, we think of the new and shiny things, the iPads, the smart boards, the AR, VR, those kinds of things. But technology really, when you think about the fundamental definition of it, is really the application of human knowledge. What we've learned in the past, we apply to the present to make things better, and that's technology. So an example of technology with this one would be the Titanic. We learned a lot from the Titanic about safety procedures, about how to prevent ships sinking like that again, about maybe not boasting too much about how amazing our boat is. So these are all things that we've learned in the past that we're now applying to the present to make things better. Okay, reading. Think about, how can reading be applied to float your boat activity? What kind of reading concepts would the students use? What kind of math concepts would you be seeing? What are they doing in their classrooms that can now be connected to a hands-on activity? Because that's when these lessons really start to sink in and help them understand these very abstract concepts, putting some actualization and some concreteness to. The engineering one, the reason that we have it in the middle of this diagram is because engineering is really going to be the application of all of these. So I'm going to read, I'm going to learn about boats, I'm going to learn about buoyancy, I'm going to know about art and what makes things beautiful and what makes things attractive to people to buy. And I'm going to take some math concepts and I'm going to apply all of these, and I'm going to create the answer to this challenge. And so that's where that engineering component comes into.
Gotcha.
So that's our very first tool, is going to be making connections. Our next one is going to be the 21st century learning skills. And we call these the 4 Cs. You can probably guess why. They all start with a C. And so as students work on and practice these skills, they're not only going to be able to play nicer on the playground or get along better in the classroom, but they're really preparing these skills for further in their education, for their future jobs. If you think about it, people don't generally lose their job because they don't have a certain skill set. People generally lose their job because they don't play nicely, or they're not a hard worker, or they're not able to contribute to their company in a way that would be beneficial. So by teaching these kids the 4 Cs and by practicing them, they're going to be able to be better prepared for the future. So if we think about our float the boat activity, whether you're building a boat by yourself or whether you're doing it as a group, you're working on that communication and collaboration. You're bouncing ideas off of each other. You're talking about, well, I remember this worked one time, but it didn't work this time. So what can we do to change this? And so having kids being able to communicate their ideas, as well as being able to share, to listen to ideas and collaborate and to build off of ideas and to accept feedback. Those are some really important skills. So no matter what STEM activity you're doing, it needs to incorporate these concepts and giving them opportunities to practice these skills. So it may mean that you have a really short activity about, hey, this is how we receive feedback. We don't get offended. We realize that they're just trying to help us. We give positives and negatives. And now we're going to practice it. We're going to build an aluminum foil boat, and we're going to receive feedback from each other. And so these are some really important ways and time usage to help kids develop these skills. Additionally, the critical thinking and creativity. Oh, go back one, Jake. I'm not quite done.
Sorry.
So critical thinking and creativity, the students are going to be able to think outside the box. They are, this is why open-ended challenges are so important with STEM, because if you just tell them exactly what they're doing and how they're going to build it, then they're really losing that opportunity to develop those skills in order to dive deeper into their thinking, as well as to practice their creativity. I taught 5th and 6th grade for many years, and by the time kids reach about 4th grade, they lose a lot of their creativity because they don't have opportunities to practice it regularly. So the early childhood elementary space is critical for practicing and developing that creativity and helping them understand it's okay that you don't think like everyone else. It's important and it's a valued trait to be creative. All right, Jake.
All right.
Our last skill is going to be the engineering design process. Now, this is a simple engineering design loop. We do have one that's a little bit more developed later that we'll see for the early childhood space. But this is basically, you're going to brainstorm, you're going to think of some ideas, you're going to pick an idea to create, and then you're going to evaluate. When I look at my activities I've done with my classroom, the evaluate phase is the most important aspect, in my opinion, because if you think about it, companies thrive on evaluation. Let's look at Apple. When they first released the very first iPhone in 2007, they had an awesome product. They knew they had knocked it out of the park. It was flying off the shelves. People loved it. People raved about it. But let's say Apple stopped there and they're like, we've got an amazing product. We don't need to develop anything else. What would have happened to Apple? It would have tanked. Somebody else would have said, hey, we can actually make your iPhone better. We're going to take a product and we're going to make it even better. And so one of the core fundamental values of a company is to look at what they're doing well and what needs to improve, and to improve and to do better, just create more, create better, have an opportunity to grow their company. And so the engineering design process is critical for kids to understand that failure is not a problem. It's part of the process. Evaluating whether you have done well or you didn't do well is a critical component. And so with the float your boat activity, allowing students to go back and make modifications to their boat. They may need to start again. They may need to create a new boat. They may need to look at what worked with other people and then to modify their boat based on that. So those are our three areas, three tools. We have creating connections or making connections, the 4 C's, where we develop those skills to interact with one another, and then the engineering design process to ensure that students are constantly making things better or thinking about how they can make it better. So I want to wrap up my section with this quote here. It says, employers say problem identification or articulation best demonstrates creativity, while school superintendents rank it ninth. Superintendents rank problem solving first, employers rank it eighth. So basically, this quote is saying that the employers value problem identification more than problem solving. But in the schools, we have a disconnect. We say problem solving is more important than problem identification. If you think about the real world, you can't solve a problem until you've identified it. So it makes sense that companies and employers are looking for people who can identify problems before they can actually solve it. And so creating hands-on STEM activities for the students where they have to not just solve the problem, but also identify it, which is kind of where that engineering design process comes into play, and those 4 C's, because they're going to collaborate and they're going to discuss with one another, and they're going to evaluate and say, hey, our boat did this, but it did not do these things. They're identifying the problem, and then they can start the process again of solving it.
We love that simple sink or flow activity, a classic that always gets students of all ages thinking and playing. To reinforce the tools and knowledge Aubrey shared, I wanted to pop back in and share 3 additional ways to get playful STEM learning started. 1. Simply ask questions. The who, what, why, and how push students' thinking and self-discovery, as well as natural experimentation. 2. Read a book. STEM can be everywhere. Have students identify STEM concepts throughout the story. 3. Engineer a solution. Pose a real-world problem, such as the boat scenario, and have them use classroom materials to brainstorm solutions. Vary constraints for more fun. All right, we're hopping back to Jake.
As we move forward, one of the things that we want to talk a little bit about is the why, right? Aubrey just kind of gave you the how and some background on what we need to focus on in our classrooms. But I know, myself included, many of us on this call, we've probably asked the question to our educators throughout our time of why do I need to know this? When will I have to apply this, right? So one of the things that Pitsco really tries to focus on and believes in is to really make that real world connection and give you all the equipment and the information to be able to answer that question as to why is it important to have these skills developed at a young age, and why is it important to allow children the opportunity to experience these type of subject matters, right? So if we think about this on the screen, it says today's kindergartners, preschoolers, young children, they'll be tomorrow's leader. And so how can we prepare the littlest learners for a future that we can't even predict? And so I'm going to talk a little bit about some stats that you can see of what really makes that future so unpredictable and what is it going to look like, right? So I'm going to hop through here. If anyone has any questions, again, toss them in the chat. So when we say we don't know what the world's going to look like, we want to take a look into the future. And so the stat that I have on the screen here is talking about technology, but as Aubrey mentioned, technology can be a number of different things. So when we're going through these stats, don't just look at it as the new shiny pieces of technology. Look at it in through the lens of innovation, right? I think we all recognize the world around us is changing at an extremely rapid rate. And unfortunately, some of the things that happened, good and bad, through the pandemic that we just got through, it's rapidly progressing that even further in a shorter amount of time. And so what does that look like for our students, right? So there was a study done in 2017 that estimated by the year 2030, which is just 7 years away, that by 2030, nearly 40% of the jobs that were currently held by US workers at that time will be automated. And so that can be a very scary and staggering stat. But the reality is we're seeing it in our world every single day. We have self-checkout lines at all of our retail stores now, right? We have different types of automation in our home and on our smartphones and so on and so forth. And so one of the things that we want to pay attention to is the skills development that we'll talk about in a little bit that Aubrey was referencing, right? We want to be able to make sure that we provide learners an opportunity to develop key skills so that they can solve problems that technology and automation can't, right? So as early childhood educators, administrators, parents, grandparents, guardians, adults in general, looking out for the best interest of our children, we need to give them that opportunity to help be creators of technology instead of just consumers of technology, right? And so the next that we'll talk about is even if they don't go into a STEM style career path. And I know there's a lot of debate on when is too early to start talking about careers. I think that we all can recognize that, again, as adults, parents, guardians, educators, grandparents, we want to prepare them for a place in the world that they get there. And whether that's a STEM career path or not, the reality is at this same time in 2030, it's estimated that there's going to be 500 billion devices in the world connected to the internet, which is a staggering number of devices. And so when we're looking at just equipping learners with the tools to succeed, say, in a career path so that they can become an engaged citizen, we can also take that back down to just being able to exist in the world when they get there, right? Because when we look at this stat, we can start to think about our lives, and we have heating and air systems in our home that connect to Wi-Fi, and we can control from our cell phones, right? We have refrigerators that are now being able to place orders at retail stores, right? There's a ton of connected devices in our homes, and giving them the opportunity to experience that will be critical for them to just be able to live in the world, right? Because it's going to become even more of a regular thing in their lives moving forward. And so again, I'm focused a little bit on computer science here, but keep in mind, there's a lot of stats that talk about STEM in general. And again, if we're talking about engaged citizenship and giving them the opportunity to develop interests in these areas, and then also develop skills, we can see that there's going to be opportunity for them in these fields when they get to become adults. STEM career fields, as you've heard before, they are very high demand and high paying. So again, if we want to give them an opportunity to be successful and support themselves and their families, this is an opportunity that we can develop some interest there to where we can ensure that they have skills and they have interest in a high demand area. But the problem is that there's a skills gap. So Aubrey just mentioned a little bit about the 4 C's, right? And so again, if we weave that blue thread from a child, early childhood all the way up to adulthood, when we think about what an engaged citizen looks like, an engaged citizen does look like a successful professional who is contributing to society in some way, regardless of whatever career path that is. As you grow up to be an adult, part of the gig is you've got to go find a job, right? And you've got to have those skills and contribute to society in some way that provides a positive impact and a positive outcome. But the problem is that we don't have enough people that are available that have those skills. And so as you can see with this stat that was a source was Edge Research focused on career and technical education, 82% of respondents said that young people are entering the workforce that are not equipped with the right skills. And so the next stat that I'm going to show you really quick is going to kind of close that loop from the skills that Aubrey was talking about, but then also the skills that employers are looking for. And so for this one, it was a Society of Human Resource Management study in 2019 that stated that 75% of HR professionals were having troubles finding qualified candidates. And they also believe, 50% of them believe, that that's going to continue to grow if we don't foster these skills at a young age in young learners. And so coincidentally, what you'll see is on the top 3 missing soft skills, you see problem solving, you see critical thinking, you see innovation and creativity, and you see ability to deal with complexity and ambiguity. So right there, we can see that the skills that are the 21st century skills in the 4 C's that are a set of base skills that can be transferable across a lot of different subject areas and topical areas in life are in demand right now. And so one of the things that I like to kind of talk about for those that are focused on, let's just say preschool right now. And those that are maybe in kindergarten through second grade right now, I would venture to guess that most of the kindergarten teachers that might be on this call, if you ask them, would you rather receive a student that knew how to recite their ABCs 1, 2, 3s, or would you rather have a student that knows how to work well with others, that knows how to communicate from a verbal standpoint and from a listening standpoint, right? That knows how to be creative and think critically when they're approaching a problem, right? I would venture to say if we took a poll, the majority of educators would say, hey, I would rather have those core set of base skills developed, because if we've got those developed, the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s are going to be ingrained and absorbed much quicker with those core foundational skills. And so the reality is with this, we can start very early at developing those skills when we recognize that birth through 5 and birth through 8 age group is the most critical point from a brain development. So we can essentially, for lack of a better term, hardwire these skills into these young learners that is going to set them on a path for success. And so to kind of talk a little bit about that, how young can we start, right? And the reality is, as Aubrey mentioned, young children are naturally curious, right? They love to tinker, right? They love to test and fail and try again and build resilience and be able to, regulate their emotions if they can, and then try something new, right? They love to touch and feel. And so to kind of put this into more of a concrete aspect, in 2014, NSTA released a summary of several national reports that basically said that young children have the capacity for conceptual learning and the ability to use the skills of reasoning and inquiry that are very vital in scientific exploration and STEM in general, because they want to learn and investigate how the world works, right? And so the reality is, if we're waiting until upper elementary grade levels, or if STEM, STEAM, STREAM is just something that they just get once a week, we're missing a big opportunity to develop skills that they can use in those other subject areas. So what we would encourage you to do is find anything you can to weave these types of experiences, these hands-on experiences and open exploration experiences into your core subjects that you're working with. The other thing that I want everyone to recognize is, and I know that we know this, right? If we expose young learners at an early age, we will set them up for success in not only school-age programs and then second grade and beyond, but it'll grow with them. And so a 2016 study of more than 7,000, almost 8,000 children from K-8 showed a correlation between early knowledge about the world and then later science success. And so one of the things that we need to try to focus on from an early age standpoint is to break down those biases, right? We all absorb biases as we grow. We might think because of a socioeconomic status or background that we might be living in, whether it's our race, whether it's our gender, we start to develop biases that tell us that we can't do something. And I have a slide in a little bit that's going to show something that can disrupt that. But the reality is, if we start young, we can start to generate and develop those interests, and we can let children know that they can and not that they can't, right? Before they start to develop those biases, like Aubrey said in 4th grade, a lot of the children start to lose their creativity. So if we can start young and give them that opportunity to tinker and test and fail and then basically succeed and be resilient, they'll recognize that there is nothing that they can't do. As long as they put their mind to it. And so just to, again, put some stats back behind why it's important. So there was a study in California recently that showed that students, particularly female students, have a high aptitude for different types of subject areas and careers that traditionally, if you look throughout the history of time, are career paths and interests that don't have a high representation of females. And so when you look at the top bullet, it was a study in high school and middle school students combined have nearly 11 times more aptitude for careers such as advanced manufacturing and then computer science. But when we go look at the landscape of what that looks like across the US, women and minorities are underrepresented in those career fields. And part of that is if we can get them feeling like they're capable of it and interested in it at younger age groups and younger age levels, we can break down those biases before they start to get ingrained in our children and allow them to be able to follow that and have success.
Thanks for hanging with us throughout this session. You've heard a bit about the how and why of play in STEM. As part of our participation with the Summit, we're gifting 2 sets of 5 of our recently released Drone Maker kits. Carly, Adam, and their team will coordinate the drawing, so be sure to stay engaged in the social group for this event. We're pumped to share the chance to help STEM learning take flight in your classrooms. Get a better look at the awesome ways to play and learn with our Drone Maker kit in this quick video. Are you ready to see what all the buzz is about? Our Drone Maker kit is here, and we're ready to help students' skills and dreams take flight. With the Drone Maker kit, you are given a system for designing, building, and flying your own drone. Talk about hands-on, minds-on fun. The included quick connect pieces, tubes, motors, propellers, and drone body make this kit the perfect introduction to drone engineering. The enclosed propeller guards ensure your students' optimal safety during flight. And this kit comes with its own controller and does not require a device. This kit is customizable and fail-proof. We love to see individualized learning and creativity at play with the various drone frame designs, and use the Drone Maker kit as an opportunity to master the engineering design process. If your design doesn't function the way you intended it to, figure out what adjustments need to be made and try again. Once your drone is assembled, work your way through the engineering-focused activities to design and test your drone, carry a payload, and design and implement a delivery system. All activities tie back to a specific career connection, such as UAV pilot, aerospace engineer, or drone technician. Drones have taken everybody's imagination by storm, and the career opportunities are expansive, from packages and groceries being delivered to your doorstep to first responders reaching remote locations with the life-saving equipment in a moment's notice. Drones are becoming more and more prevalent in industry every single day. We want to provide your learners a solid aviation foundation and critical thinking skill set to adapt to evolving innovations and challenges in drones. This kit brings the ultimate level of engagement while also teaching the basics of engineering and aviation through drone flight. So, are you ready for liftoff? For more information and inspiration, visit pitsco.com/drone-maker-kit.
We've come to the end of our session. We hope you're taking away a nugget or 2 to use in your classroom, and we hope you've had a little fun.
But before we go, we've got a final freebie for you. We've made a set of inspirational posters, perfect for any elementary learning space, available for download. Get your poster pack at pitsco.com/poster-pack. Thanks for being here and for all you do. Remember, keep playing.